Hello there.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the stream.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So you said your preferred alias was, well, I guess your actual name, Scott?
Yeah, my name is Scott, but I have a bad habit of getting too many aliases, kind of like uh, I guess some people. So on itch and game development, I typically go by Scoosex, which is an old alias that I've had since my days on Khan Academy. And more recently, I've been starting to go by DeCool One, which is an old alias from back when I was a total edgelord.
All right, well, that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you so much for joining me on the stream. I'll get the game going here. Is there background music?
There is. I assume you have the post jam update. Uh, it should say if you have the post jam update, it should say like, oh well, you have a settings menu. That's pretty good evidence that it's a post jam update. Um, the settings menu was something that I wanted to add before I had too many people play the game
Hmm.
because there was a lot of the default settings are okay, but they're not like they're like very generalized. I wanted people to be able to customize them a little bit. So some things that I will recommend in the settings menu is first off, obviously adjusting the audio levels and whatnot. There's also the option to go between windowed and full screen, which is kind of a bit backwards. It says windowed when you're in full screen, but I'll let you mess around with that. And then finally is an option to change the size of the UI. Mm. Huh, nice.
We're just gonna, it's all good, it's all good.
Hey, this is why I have people test these things. You know, when I'm building it, I'm in the Love 2D thing, so
Yeah,
but yeah, note to self, make sure that windowed versus full screen. I'll hot fix that
well,
quietly.
we're in full screen, so that's all that matters. We're good. Um,
Nice.
by the way, so what's the difference between just play and normal?
Well, I think for the most part, Rhythm Gambit is relatively self-explanatory. So I'm not gonna say too much. I will say a couple things that people get confused about.
Sure.
First off, holding the direction keys is a completely legitimate way of moving around. You don't need to tap in time to the rhythm all the time. A lot of people take a while to figure that out. Um, then there's something else. I don't know. If I see you getting confused, I will hop in and
Sure.
mention something. But
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and get started here.
we're off to a fantastic start.
Right. So I can press tab and then, oh, it's like a map. Okay, here we go. So those look
Yep.
like the points of attack, and I guess I need to. So I played a tiny bit of Cryptid. Oh, sorry, not Cryptid the Necrodancer. I played the Cadence of Hyrule game.
Hmm. Not familiar with that one. I know a lot of people have said, "Oh my goodness, this reminds me of Crypt of the Necrodancer," which is funny because I haven't played it, but
Well, I gotta
it's a
say
great game.
that if I had to actually like focus on moving to the rhythm, this interview would not be happening. So it's just as well that you don't have to be strict with that.
Yeah. That's one of the nice things about like creating a game jam thing is that you have to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. And so, you know, obviously the game is a lot easier if you are rhythmically based, but it's not a strict requirement.
Yeah, I see. Like stuff happens in accordance with the like sort of like the enemies are following the background beat, but the ooh, we got a gem.
Nice.
I'm assuming that I will figure out what that means eventually. Are the levels randomly generated, or did you design them?
Yes and no. I took a bit of inspiration from I believe the game is Spelunky, which does something similar, and probably some other games as well. But basically, all of the different rooms have like a set pattern, but where they are placed is randomly generated. So you spawn into a randomly generated dungeon every single time.
Okay, nice. So you're sort of you have like well-defined challenges that you're just arranging the order of them.
Yeah. Although I do need to small side tangent. I need to at some point fix enemy spawns since they're a little bit too random. But
Oh boy, I walked into a very dangerous-looking room here, but just trying to shit my way through. Are there? Whoa, no. Are there health recovery items, or do I got what I got?
there are health recovery items. They spawn in occasionally. If I reveal the algorithm that determines how they spawn, you'll end up gaming the system. But
Okay.
just know that you will be given health at certain points.
Okay. So I still want to play cautiously, but I don't have to like desperately hope that this is all I've got.
Yeah. Losing a heart is not the end of the world in this game. I mean, it's definitely detrimental. You don't want to do it, but you do have some way of recovering health.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I can start in with the regular interview questions now that I've kind of got my footing with the game. So, can you talk a bit about? Well, I guess you worked on this game on just by yourself, right?
Actually, no. I did have some help from a few friends of mine. So Jonathan is actually a roommate that just out of nowhere was like, "Hey, I can do all the graphics for this game," and me being a programmer type was like, sure. Yeah, I don't want to do graphics for this."
Okay, you know what?
Um,
I saw the itch.io page and I was like, oh, credits, it's all one line. That means it's made by one person. I just, it's like, I should have read the line and realized it's like, oh, no, no, there you go. You credit the art and the music. Cool.
yeah, music is by my friend Sawyer, and I have been trying to convince him to post his stuff online because it's all fire. Um, but he just hasn't. So, um, this one goes out to chat, and anyone who's watching this in the future through the VOD. Please start a cult around my friend Sawyer so I can convince him to post his music online.
I feel embarrassed. I just got hurt by a pawn.
Yeah, it happens.
No, this is sounding great. Like I definitely have it turned down to make sure that everyone can hear us speaking clearly. But yeah, sounds great. Absolutely
Yeah,
agree.
audio was the best placement for this game. We placed 33rd overall in audio.
Nice.
Yeah. I think in terms of our overall placement was also interesting. We got 123rd in the jam, which is 1, 2, 3. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's always great when you can work together with a team. And like you said, you're all just roommates, right? So are you actually like working in the same space as each other?
One of them's my roommate. The other one is an old childhood friend.
Okay, so
yeah.
but still, these aren't just like people that you randomly joined up with for the purpose of the jam. You sort of you did all know each other and
Yeah, exactly. Although Jonathan's a bit newer to quote unquote the team. Typically, the way that I've always made games is I do the programming and then I outsource the music and the art to people that are in my friend group that I actually know. So Sawyer has actually been doing a lot of the music for my games, which no one's heard of because small indie developer problems. But yeah, the team I guess has gone way back in a sense.
nice. So how many projects have you worked on together as a group?
Okay. Me and Sawyer have worked on. Let's see. I guess going all the way back to. I can't. Condemned to Explode. That's the name of it. Condemned to Explode. Was I think the first time that we had worked on like an actual game. Although he'd been sending me like his little musical jingles for forever. And then typically I had another friend of mine who would be doing art, but for this game jam, he was busy, and so like I said, Jonathan kind of came out of the blue for the artwork, and it was really cool. He did a good job.
Yeah, nice. Jó estét, Excavator, thank you for joining on the stream. I believe there you were, yes, Scott, you were involved in a conversation on the Discord about the chess game against White Rice.
Oh wait, actually, yeah, I do remember that. Oh, that was a really no. To be honest though, like I was kind of laughing, but it was a really entertaining game. I don't know if you've seen like um Levy Rosman's Guess the Elo series, but it was that kind of fun.
I'm like I know the fundamentals of how to play chess. I'm not involved in the like you know I no I have not seen the series. Oh my god, this room. Oh my gosh.
I do recommend it though. Like, Levy is quite successful in his own right because he's very good at explaining the game, especially to newer players, and why certain moves are good, why certain moves are bad, that sort of a thing.
I think that
Someone's asking about my chess score, chess rating. I only play casually, but I think I'm like chess.com account I like just started is like at 1,000 and Lee Chess is 1,300. I typically play like rapid. I think yeah, it's rapid that's the one that's like 5 minute chess, right?
I
Am I
couldn't
going
tell you. Like,
crazy?
so this is the thing that I was mentioning that like I am aware of the ELO rating scale in chess. I couldn't tell you what my ELO rating is because I think the last time that I played a chess app on my phone against a computer, I might have gotten like an ELO rating of 120 before. I was just like, like you know what the total side tangent here. My problem with chess is that I don't know anything about the opening gambits and anything like that. I just try to make a bunch of moves until I get locked in a state with my opponent, and then I'm just thinking critically, like basic deduction of like, okay, if I move this piece, that's bad. If I move this piece, that's bad. If I move this piece, that's bad. If I move this piece, it's blocked by this one, not that one, and so on until I find like the
Mhm.
one move that I can make. And then like the middle of chess, I feel really confident at. And then in the end game, when I'm trying to checkmate my opponent, it's like, how do I
Yeah.
get a rook and a queen or two rooks to just like nudge them into the corner of the board? That's it. I'm
Yeah.
terrible at finishing a game of chess.
Hey, good news for you though. If you ever feel like getting better at chess, endgames are really easy to study, like comparatively. Opening theory is awful, and not even I know it.
I feel like it's one of those like exponentially complex things that there's just so much strategy and meta strategy you can learn about it. That's the impression that I get,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah. Oh no, it's true. And the other thing that is really interesting about chess is that the earlier you're exposed to chess, the easier it is for you to learn it because you just like think about the board differently. So like I first started playing chess at like I think around 10 years old. I was in like a little chess club. Played like a tournament. But since then I haven't really done a lot, but I've been like slowly getting back into the game and starting to really appreciate like just how complex it is. And I think that kind of fascination, I guess I would say, with chess, because I wouldn't say a love for it because that would imply that I play it every single day, which isn't true. But it kind of bleeds into this game where, I've taken essentially something that has like 1,000 years of balanced patches and condensed it into this frantic rhythm game. And it's very interesting how it turned out. I reflected a lot on this in the kind of post-mortem-esque post that I made to Itch, where I was talking about like the future and whatnot. Went along with this update, and so yeah, that's I mean honestly, honestly the like just the way that everything turned out fascinates me so much. I could just like ramble on about it forever, but
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely want to get into that a bit. So you mentioned that you actually posted the. Let me pull that up. The postmortem that you made. That's available
I say
here.
post-mortem-esque because it's in the style of a post-mortem, but I'm not really sure that this game is quote unquote dead. I really do think that this game, if anything, is in its infancy. It's a very like there's a lot in this game that can be improved for sure, and there's a lot of like room for growth. And that's kind of really why I've been trying to like start to reach out to different people and say, hey, do you want to play this? Like, give me some feedback. Like, what do you think could be changed? Where would you see this game going? That kind of thing, and just kind of generate some ideas.
Yeah, of course. So I think that it's funny that you mentioned that you haven't played Crypt of the Necrodancer or Cadence of Hyrule, because it is definitely the first thing I think of when I see a character moving on a grid like this. But I definitely appreciate not having to adhere to the actual like beat because, as I mentioned at the very start, I'm no good at that. But or at the very least, it would require so much of my concentration that I don't think I'd be able to speak at the same time. I'd just be in this trance of like trying to keep up with the rhythm.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that it's not a strict requirement of this game. Um, the one thing that I can mention in terms of feedback right now is that I've definitely noticed like going into some of the rooms close to spawn. The very first room I went into was pretty chill. The second room I went into was very chaotic. And it feels like this is definitely a game that you can like get better at over time. Like your meta skill at the game can improve. But I don't know if that's
Mhm.
what you're going for or whether you would rather each run at the game build build itself up in terms of complexity.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because this kind of gets into like what was my goal for the jam versus
Mm-hmm.
what is the goal for going into the future. So in terms of goal for the jam, I wanted to create something that had like some sort of a skill curve. I didn't want some simple game where you just go in and you're just like, all right, I'll just kind of mess around, goof around, and like the first run doesn't go that well, but then the second run, hey, you get it, and you kind of just move on. This game is it's simple, but it can get quite difficult
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of places, and so there is an absolutely like massive skill ceiling for this game, especially because most people play it on normal, which is, by the way, the recommended difficulty. But like, even going all the way up, there's a difficulty called No Mercy, where basically anything kills you. There's no way you have essentially one heart, and at that difficulty, in order to beat the game, you're going to have to do several trials. You're going to have to already be really good, that sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea was essentially to create an experience where people could have fun with it, even without beating the game, because I think only a very small percentage of people who play this game actually do end up beating it. But it's a game that's has fun mechanics and whatnot, and is fun to learn, and you can pick it up relatively quickly. Now going into the future, of course, I want to kind of change around that experience. This game does actually take some inspiration from a rhythm game that I do enjoy quite a bit called Bullets Per Minute,
Mm-hmm.
BPM. And in that game, they have like a lot of the systems for this game. I kind of was thinking in the back of my mind about that game. And one of the things that that game does to kind of build difficulty is that it starts out in a quote unquote easy dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of similar to like how this game is, where it's like you can kind of make your way around, but like you're constantly dying when you first like get into the game, and then slowly you just, like build up the skill and whatever, and eventually you're able to get out of that dungeon. Then you like start in a new harder dungeon, and if you die there, then you head back all the way to the beginning. And essentially, once you get really good at the game, you're able to just bust through the first few dungeons really quick, and you're basically just like doing any, just like looting whatever comes up and making quick decisions about like, okay, is this item better or this item better for the specific build I'm going for? And then you just keep building up from there.
Okay, well, so
So
let's talk about that a bit real quick because so do you actually see this game as having like a character build system and like a progression, like avatar
I,
progression?
I have been trying to decide because I definitely want to add, like additional dungeons and stuff with increasing difficulty and whatever. But the problem with that, and I recognize this, is that if you have that sort of a system and your character's not really growing, or every single run like starts from the same point and you're not like making any progress out in the
Mm-hmm.
world that makes future runs easier, people just aren't gonna want to play that. That's a boring game. I wouldn't want to play that. If I don't want to play it, who else is gonna want to play it? So I've been trying to figure out exactly like what I want to do with that concept, and I've come up with a few ideas. And granted, I want to be kind of treading cautiously here because I'm talking about things that don't exist and could maybe not make the cut even if they sound really cool. But I was thinking about, like, for example, you have like maybe you could have like an upgrade tree where you base it off of chest things. One of the things I thought about was kind of like creating variants where, like, for example, you get an upgrade that allows you to, and that's called like Crazy House, and it essentially allows you to spawn your last captured piece as an ally. That's still chest based, but that's a pretty powerful upgrade. And then I was also thinking about potential Gambit. So maybe each upgrade comes with a downside. So maybe for the Crazy House upgrade, since it's really good, the downside is that now whenever pawns hit the end of the board, they promote to a random piece. As a kind of an example of what I'm thinking about. But then again, I don't know if that system would work. Maybe it would be better to just have like small, simple dungeon, and then bigger dungeon, bigger dungeon, bigger dungeon without a build thing. And then maybe for example, instead of starting from dungeon 1, you start from the beginning of whatever dungeon you're currently in, and then you have like different music and whatever for each dungeon, and it'd be really cool. So I'm kind of playing around with those ideas. Basically, what I need is I just need to start like prototyping things and see what works, what doesn't, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like it's absolutely possible to have like a character progression system in the game, because otherwise, like, if you think about it from the perspective of what is the point of playing an easier difficulty if not to build yourself up to a harder difficulty, but what's there to build up?
Mm-hmm.
So if the game is based around start easy, ramp your way up to hard, then you want there to be some reason for that. You want there to be something the player is like earning, even if it's just as simple as like more hearts, like heart pieces that you build up towards like having more overall health so you can kind of tank some of the harder challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. The problem is, and this may be kind of a shortcoming of the current design, is that it's hard to think of a lot of upgrades for a chest-based game that aren't like, we increased your health pool, we gave you another heart, you're welcome, here's a coin that you can use to buy health. You can only get so far with that.
Exactly.
And so that's why I kind of like the idea of coming up with kind of unique power-ups. Like I said, a Crazy House variant that costs an insane amount or something would be freaking awesome. People would love that. They're like, oh my goodness, I got the Crazy House variant. Let's go. And you can have some fun with that, where you now are summoning in allies who are taking out all the enemies for you, or like capturing a piece so that you can put it back on the board so that you can have it as a friend and like slowly convert the entire room to be your color.
Yeah, I think so. I completely agree that the enemy queens, we've seen a couple of them. I'll point them out to you next time we see one excavator. These are, well, there's a few too many enemies on screen right now to really oh my god. Okay.
If you see fire, it's probably an enemy queen.
Yeah. They sort of telegraph a line out where they're about to attack, and then they follow it. So all I was going to say about I shouldn't have moved into an active board when I started trying to talk. I don't know if there's a king. We're going to have to come across that. Maybe if I collect all the gems, I'll find out. So health, I completely agree. Boring power up. You don't want. There's two things that I always dislike when developers create upgrades in games. I guess the two things that I consider to be like lame upgrades are just like more attack, more health, more defense. Like anything that's just like a stat buff that doesn't actually change anything about the way you play the game, that feels kind of boring. And then also anything that feels like it should be in the game already. Like when a game has really obnoxious collection mechanics, like you kill an enemy and a bunch of coins spill out on the ground, you have to go and pick them all up manually. and then oh, you can get an
Mhm.
upgrade that makes those things pull towards you. It's like that should have just been in the game. That shouldn't be an upgrade that you have to buy. Or at the
Yeah,
very
I
least,
I
it
think
should be something you earn really quickly, really without much cost to it.
yeah, you're 100% on that. You're 100% right. And that's really why I was a bit hesitant, to go too far into adding items. Like in this game, like the base game that you get, basically the only item is is like a single health pack, which gives you health because it's kind of necessary to beat the game. Um, but at some point, I do want to try to, maybe if I just sit down and just like brainstorm for like a long period of time, just come up with like, what are some cool upgrades that would really, make the runs like change. I do like that you brought that up as well. Like something where an upgrade should change the way that the game is played in some capacity, not just like, oh, well, now me shooty things a little tiny bit faster.
Yeah,
Um,
and I to be like to sort of complete that thought though, I at one point I got really obsessed with like every upgrade, everything must completely change the way the game works. I still think that's the best way to construct your upgrades, but you can balance that with the boring ones. I think there is room for like the health pickups and whatever to boost your character's avatar strength,
yeah.
while you're also demanding more complex and varied play from the player.
And I mean, I'm not even sure, like, entirely convinced that health doesn't change the way that you play the game. Like, when you play the game at full health, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go crush all these nerds, and then you get down to one heart, you're like, oh, I'm scared, I'm gonna go hide in a little corner.
Yeah,
So there is something to say for that, but like, if everything's health based, then it's kind of boring.
yeah, exactly. So it's not to say that like having a high amount of health has no effect on the game. It's not to say that like having more attack doesn't make you more aggressive and like knowing that you can defeat an enemy in fewer hits. It does change the game. It just doesn't change it significantly enough that I consider it worthwhile.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
difference between getting a bonus that's like, hey, you do 20 more health versus, oh, look, you have this new cool bow. It shoots this epic attack, and look, it does extra damage, by the way.
yeah, exactly. Like if it does extra damage as well, that's a cherry on top. But if it's like, oh, this bow shoots around walls or like arcs over things and that lets you hit things that you couldn't hit before, that's cool because now it's a different way of engaging with the game.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning Excavator that you're loving the soundtrack. I agree. I think this is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Soundtrack, shout out to Sawyer again. Please start a cult so that we can get him to upload his stuff online.
Sounds good. I think we're both initiates, members of that cult. Um, okay, so we've been kind of jumping around a bit. I'm just going to throw some ideas at you in terms of stuff that I think could be interesting in terms of like power ups or abilities in the game.
let
Because
me let me quickly call up my notepad.
oh sure, sure, but yeah, they'll you'll be able to review this in the VOD as well. So
Yeah.
um, in previous game jams to this one, oh, I'm gonna tab out of the game real quick and see if I can find the particular game that I was thinking of. Uh, Call it up over here off screen in my played folder because I bookmarked every single game that I've played before. I'm just trying to remember if this was from Ludum Dare or whether this was from the GMTK jam. Yes, it was GMTK. It was joined together because that was the theme. And basically, the idea of the game is that as you take control of characters, you all move simultaneously. And it made for a really interesting, like, movement itself became a puzzle because you're trying to get all your troops around obstacles and such.
Hmm.
Uh, it might have been this one. It was like some sort of dungeon game. You know what? Maybe I'll try to send a link to you after the stream's over because there's a lot of games that it could be. I played like 100 games for that particular jam.
Yeah.
Um, so the main idea is that like if you had multiple characters here, I'll tab out to paint to just sort of illustrate what I'm talking about. And you'll see it on the stream in a bit of a lag. But if you have like a solid wall in like this one square here, and you've got a couple of characters that you're controlling, then if you are trying to get them all like down and around this path down here, then if you move to the right, then this piece moves and ends up here, but this piece gets nudged against this wall. Um, so you have it's pretty trivial when you don't have many pieces, but the more pieces that you end up under your control, eventually you start having to think about like, oh, how am I going to sort of like lead this whole troop around obstacles and bounce into things. And it became especially interesting when you were trying to line yourself up with pressure pads on the floor, because then you had to think about like, how am I going to like nudge one character off and have them move just like one space away. And the other thing that was important is that if a character got separated from you, like it wasn't at least adjacent, like I think one diagonal adjacent to another character, that it would die. So
Oh.
you had to like move your characters around, but not split them up, because otherwise they would just like you'd lose them. So
Hmm.
that was an interesting modification of play, and I can imagine like capturing pawns and moving them around with you, and even if the pawns just kind of like tank a hit for you, even if they don't necessarily attack, that could be. I feel like there might be something there. Um, Also, I think something to do with reflecting projectiles back, like that. There's gotta be there's always something to play with there. I'm just wondering how you could do it in a unique or interesting way. And again, it could be to
Maybe
do.
it could be something where you reflect a projectile back, but you only reflect it back if you're moving towards the projectile, as an example.
Yeah,
Just like
absolutely.
random off the top of the noggin.
No, that I think that would work quite well, because it means that you have to have some sort of active participation in the game, and you have to think about it, and it doesn't just happen depleting like a passive resource or something. It also
Mm.
could be that when you capture a piece, like you become that piece, and then that piece has some unique ability, maybe even moves. I can't say like it
Yeah.
can't move exactly the way that a chess piece would, because that would make some squares inaccessible.
Yeah, it would also be really awkward if you got a knight.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
would
was
hate
thinking
to
of.
write a movement controller for a knight. Oh.
Exactly that.
Mm.
Like I do think it's fascinating when you look at the uh from a mathematical perspective. I'm aware of things like the knight's journey, where I believe you can get a knight to every single square on the board. It just takes a really long time and involves a lot of movements.
Yeah, I mean that's a chess concept, is like trying to figure out how to get a knight from here to here, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a
Like
fun mathematical
for
challenge.
example, yeah,
Yeah.
for example, actually, no, this gets into chess.
Yeah.
So like as a brief aside, not really
Sure,
related.
sure.
If you're a king and you're trying to dodge a knight's attack, it's good to kind of keep this stuff in mind. So if you are on a diagonal to a knight, the knight takes 2 moves to get to you, so the knight will just put you in check. But if you're horizontal or vertical to the knight, like by a square, then it takes 3 moves, so you get an extra turn in between. So
Yeah. So you're always trying to move yourself to be in that horizontal or vertical position relative to the knight.
yeah.
Um, a meme channel in the Discord, maybe. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Like memes and funny pictures. Goodness knows I got my fair share of those as a potential channel reward. That could be fun. Escapator. Um, so, yeah, I think that if you don't actually have to move like the pieces that you capture, but it could be fun to get some ability. Like I could totally see it working, that like whatever piece you capture becomes like a Mario power up, where like you take one hit and you
Mm.
lose the piece, but as long as you've captured it, you have that attack, like whatever
Ooh,
ability that that piece has.
I really like that idea.
Cool.
Especially if you steal the attack from whatever enemy. So like
Mhm.
you grab a knight and now you're shooting projectile like bombs in a circle, or you grab the queen and now you're leaving a fire trail.
Yeah.
That could be really cool. I really like that idea.
All right. Oh my gosh, this queen is kicking my butt. Speaking of queen, um, okay, come on, get you. Well, I'm down to 1 health, so we'll see how long this run lasts. If I die, that's fine, because I wanted to talk about some stuff on the main menu anyway, so it'll be an intentional death, totally calling it ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
All right, so anything else that comes to mind in terms of, yeah, I think that the main idea of like capturing a piece and then like that's fun, but then you don't want to have the situation where you, like the famous issue in like old shoot 'em up games where it's like, oh great, I got that power up, like the one that like depowers you in some way. So I don't
Yeah.
think you want to like automatically get the power of whatever it is you last captured, but there you could come up with some conditional on that of like, at what point are you gaining that ability, and then does the ability stack? Like, can you capture the abilities of 2 pawns and now you're dealing damage in the 4 diagonals instead of just the 2 diagonals in whatever direction you're moving in? Could you say with the rooks as well, like you could start the powers as like you only shoot in the direction that you're moving, but eventually you shoot in all 4 directions. With the queen, you leave like 1 fire behind you. Like the more queen captures you build up, the more fire you leave behind you. Like, honestly,
Actually, I like that. I'm gonna call that a bounty system. It's like you get you essentially you like get awarded a bounty, and then like every time you capture the piece that's on that bounty, your power increases. That could be cool.
well, the thing that I just realized is that the powers aren't actually mutually exclusive with one another. Like you could just keep building up your strength and capturing more and more pieces, and eventually like you've got like all of the powers of all of the chess pieces. I don't know. I feel like that could get very chaotic, but I would love to see a version of that, and then how you could rein it in. Maybe you can only pick 2 at a time, but a lot of the powers do not seem mutually exclusive. So how am I still alive?
Nice. Maybe for pawns, instead of giving you a really weak attack, maybe the pawns just like up whatever your current attack is, so they're like a multiplier or something. But I don't know, something to play around with.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even the pawns could be like a health refill or something like that. Like the most basic thing isn't actually leading towards progression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for how you could play with that. All right, well, this is the best run I've got so far, so I'm going to endeavor not to die. If there is a conclusion, I'd love to see at least 1 success on this stream.
Yeah. I will say though, people have complained that this game is too easy. Like 1 person I'm aware of,
Okay.
which is funny because I'm pretty sure, like we had, I'm a college student, so I have a bunch of friends like that are just in the area bored, and I'm like, hey, you want to stop doing homework and come play my little game? And of most of the people who play the game don't end up beating it, even after several attempts. I think actually Jonathan, graphics guy, has done several playtests and still hasn't beat it. Or no, wait, Jonathan has. Different guy hasn't.
Okay. Okay, so SK Vader's asking, well, yeah, so to elaborate, it's kind of like Spelunky, where the way the levels are stitched together is randomized, but the rooms themselves are non-randomized. Like within a room, the layout is not random, but the way that they are connected together in this map is random. And if you die, you do lose all your progress, so in that way it is sort of roguelike.
Yeah.
Well, that is roguelike, what am I saying? Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally roguelike.
Yeah.
And I will say, as an addition to that, Spelunky had a mechanic where it like parts of the rooms would also be like hand built, and then those would also get stitched together in interesting ways. This doesn't have like that level. So
Yeah, so it's not pieces of the room that are being stitched together, it's like entire rooms.
yeah.
Yeah, because the way Splunky did it is much more complicated.
Yeah.
All right, making my way through. I think maybe the complaint about the difficulty comes down to sort of what I mentioned earlier as well, is that you can just kind of get a unlucky spawn and there being like just a whole lot of enemies and you die really quickly. But on the other hand, someone could just have like an easy time of it and get lucky with the health pickups, and then not have as hard of a time with it?
Yeah, I will say you don't get lucky with health pickups, but
Okay.
that said, you can get lucky with spawning, and that's a known issue that I've been trying to figure out exactly how to address. I didn't end up addressing it in the post-jam update. Oh, wait, hang on. I'm gonna let you concentrate for a bit.
Oh no.
I just took a look at
Oh
the
my
stream.
god. Oh my god. God. Oh, I only have 2 hearts. Can't screw this up.
Uh,
Okay, 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 okay. Pawns, pawns. Go from the sides. Take him out. Take him out from behind. Queen. Oh my god. Okay, okay. Queen. Queen got the. Oh, I thought I got the queen. I only had 1 heart left. No.
uh,
Oh my gosh.
oh, that's.
I'll try
You're like
again.
this close to an epic gamer moment.
Now, I definitely needed more health going into that final room there. Uh, Queens are
Yeah.
really hard to chase down. Uh,
Yeah,
you have to
they
catch them in
can
that
be.
one moment before they move again, because the moment they move, the space that they were in now hurts you. So that makes them real tough.
Yeah. Um, that's something actually that I could change. I could make it so they don't leave fire on the space that they were, but I don't know.
I think that's
I'm
something you could
probably
even
gonna
play
rework
with.
enemies anyways.
That's something you could even play with on the different difficulty settings. Like um,
Ah,
rather than just ramping up the like meta level difficulties. I don't know because on the one hand, as it sort of goes to the way that we were talking about like upgrades earlier, where I think it's boring to just have like the X+1 power ups. Whenever you do like a difficulty system that is just like, oh, enemies just deal more damage, that's not really more interesting to me. I think it is more interesting to have different difficulties separated out by the way that pieces actually would behave and the amount of bullets or maybe how far the bullets travel or like that
mm,
actually changing it. But then you kind of run into the issue of people get used to playing the game and the behaviors on an easier difficulty, and then they don't necessarily realize that the pieces are behaving in a different way on the harder difficulties. So you're kind of training yourself in a bad way by playing it on the easier difficulty.
yeah.
It's tough to say. Like maybe it could even just be as simple as the when you play on harder difficulty, the pieces have a different color, and that's sort of like to clue you in that they are behave differently than the normal ones.
Mhm.
It's not something that
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to implement myself, so it's just a theory of like whether or not this would be an issue.
Yeah. It's something to consider for sure. I mean, like I said, this game is like it's marked as alpha. It's probably pre-alpha to be honest.
Mhm.
It's in a very early, infant state. Um, but there's a lot of potential, a lot of good ideas that have had thrown around. Um, so
Excavator's asking if you can get the soundtrack to listen to.
ooh, that's a good point. I definitely want to release the soundtrack if I ever do build up a full game, which I'm still debating, but it kind of sounds fun, not gonna lie. But if I ever do build up with like more dungeons, whatever, there will definitely be a soundtrack. Um,
So I just tabbed back to the main menu because I did want to actually touch on some stuff. Why can't you see the other menu options? Why are they hidden off the bottom of the screen?
um, that is an excellent question. I'll let you know.
Okay. Um,
It's probably something that I could implement. I think the biggest reason why is because my setup has a small main monitor, like 1366 by 768. And so for me, the third option was going off the screen anyways and looked ugly, so I just hid it. Um, honestly though, I do admit the menu systems could probably use some updates. I want to rewrite it, like create like some UI library for myself and just go to town.
yeah,
But for now,
absolutely.
I went for functionality for the time being because I didn't have a lot of time to begin with the jam. I do menus last, like a good developer. And then after that, I was like stuck with working with a spaghetti code of the jam and had to like figure out some hacky ways to add an extra button.
Yeah. So the reason that I've opened up my project here is because it wasn't clear to me that like what this normal meant before I started trying to press left and right on it because I couldn't tell that I could
Mm-hmm.
manipulate it. Even something as simple as having like when I go up and down in the menu options, which you'll see on stream momentarily, like now I can like when I
Yeah,
move over something, then the arrows pop up, and that gives me the hint that I can manipulate it, as opposed to something like resume or quit game, for which there is no left-right manipulation.
yeah, yeah. That can work. Yeah, and I will admit, UI is definitely a weaker point of this game. Except for I think that the in-game UI works really well, but the menus, yeah, are kind of sad. And also switching to windowed mode crashes it, which I will definitely be fixing that.
Yeah, no worries. It is alpha 0.02. I know that that's blocked on the stream, but it is in the sort of bottom corner that it's just barely invisible because of the way that I have
Yeah.
the taskbar on my screen is always hidden, which so it's basically just
Mhm.
always cutting off the very bottom and very top slice of whatever's on screen. So um,
How dare you not show us how many tabs of Chrome you have open?
well, I think it's mostly you can still see
It's
the Chrome
aesthetic.
tabs, but you can't see my bookmarks along the very top. And it's excuse me, it is Firefox, not Chrome.
Ah, a man of culture.
I just there's some things I don't even get into the like Firefox versus Google respecting your data. No, I just like Firefox better. I like the way that
Mhm.
I can customize it more. But so anyway, that's neither here nor there. Um, we've kind of like I sent you like the list of questions that I usually ask, and we've kind of like bounced around those. And I think I love the way that the conversation has gone. But I'm just trying to see if there's anything that we haven't touched on. Um, you mentioned bullets per minute as your inspiration. It was sort of like one of the things, but is any other inspirations leading into this game?
I mean, really, this game was birthed out of a combination of kind of fascination with the game of chess.
Hmm.
Somewhat, it was based off of my love for bullets per minute, and the fact that I joined the Brackies Game Jam 2 days late and was like, "Oh frick, I need to make a game." So yeah,
Nice. Well, I think it came together really well in spite of your self-imposed time constraint.
yeah, I am very happy with how the game turned out. I mean, it's definitely not perfect, especially the jam version had some rough edges that got ironed out in the post jam version, and even the post jam version can be a little rough around the corners. But honestly, it's a fun game, and it's been great, seeing other people play it and enjoy it for what it is, and especially I think the biggest thing for me, like that I really got out of this as a developer is like a big win, is the things that people didn't say. Like no one complained about like the controls. Well, almost no one complained about the controls. Um, Nobody really was like saying, "Oh, you know what? There's just something about this that just feels wrong," or something like that. Nobody was like, "Oh, the music for this is terrible," or the graphics are like hurting my eyes. And so really I think for me it was just the fact that I got so many of the little things right, and to be honest, the game just feels really good and it's really fun to play, and I enjoy playing it a lot. um, Probably to my detriment for completing deadlines, but whatever.
Well, I think that you've definitely got something you can build on here, like for sure. I'm just trying to think of um, whenever I get into a big room like that,
Hmm.
sometimes it would help to have like a pointer if there's just like one guy left in some corner of the screen that I can't see. That could help. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention is potentially marking out the spaces that are like I think it's something that becomes intuitive pretty quickly, but you could consider marking out the spaces that are about to become dangerous. Um,
Yeah.
I know that you weren't intentionally drawing inspiration from Cadence of Hyrule or Crypt of the Necrodancer, but it could help to look at those games and see like what are some of the UI affordances that they've included in the game that they felt were worth implementing might help improve the experience that you're building here.
Yeah. I think adding I think I might have just play those, see what they did, see what I like, see what I might casually borrow, steal, you know.
Yep. No, that's totally fine. So let's see. Do you want to talk a little bit about your actual development process in the game?
Yeah, actually. So I haven't done too many game jams. I think this is only like my second or third game jam. Third, yeah, third. So I don't know if I have like the best process, but basically what I try to do is I try to just be like, all right, I want to get like this much done, and I think I'm pretty good at like estimating about how much I can get done in the given time frame. And so I'll just like plan out, roughly, all right, this is what I need to get, and then I just start with like, a character that I just quickly draw up in Paint and like some like the most basic rules of the game. So I think for Rhythm Gambit, I think I started with basically just like creating an empty room, and then I put a player character in that empty room, and then I just like started building up from there. I think after that it was the pawn, and then the knight, bishop, rook. The queen was really fun because I wasn't quite sure I was going to differentiate it, but then we were kind of brainstorming. We were just like, what if it just like slides around and creates walls of fire? And that turned out really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I will say like biggest thing that I would say to developers participating in a game jam is just like target your minimum viable product first. I mean,
Yep.
it's really like, it's not like the most complex advice, but it's so important. Like, you need to be starting from square one of just like, all right, if I was going to release this now, like what is the next feature that needs to get into here for this to actually be playable?
Absolutely. Yeah, like the recent like the Vim Jam #2 is like an ongoing thing right now, and when Vimlark announced the theme for the jam, he actually posted like a list of tips in his theme announcement video. Super simple, but I reposted them on the did I post them on my Discord? Did I just repost them on no. Okay. Definitely go check that theme video out. I'll see if I can pull it up here real quick because it was just really simple tips, but very effective as well. That's not what I wanted. Here we go. Just mute the tab and see if I can pull it up here real quick. Yeah, here we go. That's not what I wanted. Put that there. That's not what I wanted either. Come on, move the tab. There we go. Remember what I said how I like Firefox? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't always play nice with moving things across multiple screens. Here we go. Turn the closed captions off. Thank you. Okay, so playtester exported build. Holy cow, that happens to people all the time. You were mentioning even at the start of this video how in your own development environment the full screen works, but when I tried it outside of that, then it broke.
Yeah.
Don't make the game too long. That's another thing that a lot of people try to cram in as much content, and it really is a matter of quality over quantity when it comes to jams, because you want people who can like get into a game, play through it, and if they say they want more, that's great. You don't want people to like kind of fall off and say like, well, it was kind of fun, but it was really long and I wanted to move on to the next thing, so I didn't end up finishing it.
Yeah.
The difficulty, yeah, very much very important. Like developer difficulty is very much a thing that can hit everyone.
Yeah.
Having full screen is nice for streamers. That was specifically Vimlark was asking for that, and then also to like have fun doing it and to not stress yourself out. But I'll let Vimlark actually like I'll link to this video so that you can check it out yourself. But just wanted
Yeah.
to give a quick overview of that because I thought it was all very good advice.
And those are all very good tips, I will say. I know in the past I've had issues with a lot of those, and just yeah.
In terms of the AI for the pieces, though, like pawns seem, I don't know. I feel like there is the knights actually feel great in terms of I have to kind of dodge around them and think very carefully. The the rooks, I will I will almost always take damage when I'm trying to kill a rook because
Yeah.
you can move diagonally, but it's difficult to press. Oh no, it's difficult to press the two keys at the same time. So I almost always end up taking damage from a rook, and
Yeah.
then again because your movement is on a mostly uh, horizontal vertical grid, when you come up against a um, bishop, their attacks are the most dangerous when they're just kind of incidentally hitting you from far away. But
Hmm.
again, like when I gotta get up close to them, I'm not in much danger. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's anything you can do to make the attack patterns on these enemies a little bit more dangerous. Um,
I'll tell you what I was planning
yeah,
is to write out a pathfinding script because that's something that didn't make the cut because I did not have the time to implement that. So the pathfinding of these enemies is rudimentary, would be an understatement. I mean the pawns have perfect pathfinding, but that's because they don't pathfind, you know.
they just move up and down.
Exactly. Yeah, they're very 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 simple. And then like all the other enemies have pathfinding with massive quotes around them. So I've really been wanting to like try to figure out some system where it can be like, okay, these enemies like can now like properly pathfind around the map, and that way if you're too slow, they'll all just kind of swarm you, and it forces a little bit more. It would force a little bit more like moving around the map rather than just kind of sitting in a corner and waiting for something to accidentally wander towards you. So.
Hmm. I wonder, like, I feel like that could become an issue where the player could get really easily overwhelmed on larger maps. And I also feel like the game is at its strongest when you are just dealing with smaller challenges presented by groups of enemies where you can see everything on the screen at once. So I'm wondering, like, if you do
Mhm.
implement the more challenging pathfinding,
I mean,
um,
obviously the game will need to be rebalanced accordingly, right?
yeah, of
Because if you're
course.
going to change every time you change your enemies, you have to go back and be like, okay, well, now this enemy is way too powerful and we spawn it too often, so we need to tune down the spawning, or maybe it's way too powerful, so we need to just adjust the AI to make it attack less, or, something like that.
Yeah. The times between attacks are less frequent, or the bullets don't travel as far, or any number of other things.
Mhm.
Oh, so Excavator is also asking if you're interested in participating in Ludum Dare 49.
I'm gonna be honest. This has been my game jam for the semester. The only reason I hopped in was because I was bored. It was opening week, and all the professors were talking about the syllabus. Um, I'm not. I definitely don't have time for another game jam at this point. I think I'll probably just work more on this if anything. You know.
All right, I'm getting complacent and lazy and getting hit by a lot of things. All right, well, do you have a useful shortcut or a clever hack in the Love 2D engine that you could recommend to others?
Uh, yeah. I was trying to think about this one because I have a big soft spot for the Love 2D engine. And I guess I've tried using other engines like Unity, for example. I've tried to use Unity to make things, and well, Unity is cool and all. I just keep coming back to the Love 2D engine because it's simple and it's really well documented. It's very well documented. If you go to the Love 2D wiki, um, you know, shameless plug for all the Love 2D developers. They do some great work. But every single function in the entire library has a page describing everything it does, potential shortcomings, known bugs, and like which like what it returns, and like a code example that shows it being used, like with actual with actual like actually in a project.
Mhm.
And so I really, I mean, my recommendation, slash hack is just the Love 2D engine itself. Like, I don't see a lot of games getting developed with it because a lot of people are like, oh, Unity, Godot, and stuff like that. If you need to make like a quick 2D game, Love 2D is a really good option. If you don't mind Lua, that's the one caveat. It uses Lua, and some people just can't stand Lua, so maybe not for them. But
Yeah, I mean, I have the most experience writing stuff in GameMaker actually, because yeah, it's like a simple, easy to use. Like I do use Unity professionally during the day, but when I'm just making a game jam, yeah, I hop back into GameMaker version
Mm.
1.4 because I can't even stand GameMaker version 2. But the yeah, I totally know what you mean about like switching out your tool set to work in a simpler engine. Absolutely.
Yeah. I pity the poor souls who try to use Unity to make a 2D game. Like,
Uh-huh.
uh,
It's not
it's
exactly built for it.
yeah. I've built a 2D game in Unity and proceeded to regret my life decisions.
I think it's like the funny thing is like it's great for UI. So if you're building a game that is mostly like UI based, like a sort of click and drag puzzler sort of thing, it's great for that. Um, if
You
you,
mean Unity?
yeah, I do, yeah.
It's funny you say that because I think Unity is absolutely freaking awful for UI.
Oh, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
my bar for comparison is GameMaker, and GameMaker has
Mm.
no tools for UI whatsoever. So to me, the Unity tools are like, oh, I can anchor stuff. This is great.
Yeah. I don't know how GameMaker handles UI.
It doesn't.
Love2D, which is kind of Love2D, which is what I'm used to, is basically like, hey, do you want to draw a rectangle here? There's a function for that. Do you want to draw a sprite? There's a function for that. It's that kind of framework,
Okay,
which I really enjoy. But
yes, and that's the thing. That's the way GameMaker does things as well. I can just draw sprites, draw rectangles, draw stuff to the screen. And
yeah.
I do like that flexibility. Unity, I totally know what you mean. You can't just like draw primitives to the screen, and that's so frustrating because there's a lot
Yeah.
of cool, fun stuff you can do with drawing primitives. Um, but it does have like once you get used to the quirks of Unity, like there was a large chunk of time where I spent like, how on earth do I make any stuff in UI in Unity? This would be so much simpler if I could just I want to draw the number of hearts I have. I just want to call the draw sprite method in a for loop based on the number of lives I have.
Yeah.
Once I figured out how to do the equivalent of that in Unity, my ability to create a UI in Unity far surpassed my ability to do stuff in GameMaker. So once you get over that hump and you just get used to the Unity way of building UI, I'd say it gets much easier. But
Mm.
again, like if you are more comfortable with the like manual, you know, how are you drawing the hearts in this game? By the way, is it like what I said, like a sprite in a for loop?
It's a sprite in a for loop. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the most natural way to think about it. And if you're you can do it in just like a few lines of code. So Unity is gives you some like nice tools to do it in a robust way and get the like the layout and the spacing like all the way that you want it, but it takes time.
Mhm.
No good in the context of a game jam. Completely agree on that.
Yeah. And I will also further say that the number of people I've seen like use Unity in a game jam and then just have like all the buttons be on the in the wrong place, or like the button hitbox is different from the button sprite and
Yep,
stuff like
yep,
that
yep.
is just astounding.
So many easy gotchas to like get wrong in that. I completely like I saw that. I saw it in a production app. I had to go in with someone and say like, so you see the way that your developer has implemented all of these buttons. You see the reason that I can click here and it still counts as part of the button. That's because the text component is larger than the button sprite itself, and the text is a child of the button. Therefore, clicking the text counts as clicking the button.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get wrong. I completely agree. Like as I said, it took some getting used to, and I'm happy with it now. But I do agree in the general sense of like there are easier ways to get started with building out UI. It just once you put in the time, it really does click.
Yeah, and I think also it clashes with kind of my identity as a developer, because in my head, I like, you know, building the tools myself, because that way, you know, a blade you make is one that you know on all sides, whereas a one you buy is not. I'm sure that's a Chinese proverb. Um, but
I do know what you mean. I wish I had more manual control. Like if I had everything that the Unity layout system had, plus the ability for me to just like draw sprites and primitives and other fun stuff, that would be so far and away the ideal. Um,
mhm.
anyway, so did you? I think we've pretty well covered all the points that I would normally ask about, except for where can people find you on social media, and do you have any other projects that you'd like to plug, even just past ones?
The answer to where people can find me on social media is not a lot of places, to be honest. I'm not, I don't have like a Twitter or Instagram page or anything like that. What I have is a YouTube channel, and that's about it. So, oh well, YouTube channel and my itch.io account, and I guess Discord, but that doesn't really count. Um, Let me quickly. I had the link for this like ready, and then I just
No,
forgot
no
to
worries. So I've
go
just
grab
dropped a
it.
link to your YouTube channel, your itch page.
Oh dang, you managed to find my YouTube channel.
Well,
Let's
it
go.
was linked on the bottom of your itch page, I believe.
Ah, hey, I'm smart for once. Yeah. Um, yeah, my so that's yeah, my YouTube channel is where I generally post random updates. It's there's also some old videos of me being cringy with my Khan Academy work, which I started on Khan Academy, making games for fellow 10-year-olds. But
So
yeah.
did you learn Lua through Khan Academy, or did you learn something else and then transition to Lua?
I learned processing.js on Khan Academy, and it was really great, and I loved the environment. And then I started realizing, wait a second, people can only play my games on Khan Academy, and I wanted to change that. So I started looking around for an engine. I tried Unity, I tried Unreal, um, and I wasn't really happy with either. Unity because I started to hit kind of some of the Unity roadblocks and unexplained bugs and whatever else that Unity just doesn't bother patching. And Unreal, I never really quite understood, like the graph system and whatever else. And then just kind of on a whim, I went and I grabbed Love2D, and it was like very similar to what I was used to on Khan Academy, in that like it was very much like not a lot of tools, but what they gave you was like good and well documented and worked all the time exactly how you expected it would. And so at that point, I just like I started making things in Love2D, and I really haven't looked back too much. I mean,
Nice.
occasionally I'll switch to some other engine for like a project, and they'll be like, "Nah, Love2D is where it's at."
Absolutely. Well, I think that's really great. It's always good to have that feeling of like a tool that you can fall back to and build out everything you want. You don't ever feel constrained by the tool. That's really what you're looking for.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Love2D is. I don't think I've ever had like. Well, okay, I've had like some projects where I'm like, dang, I guess I can't develop this in Love2D, but that's usually like 3D stuff, and even then, you can get surprisingly far with 3D and Love2D,
Nice.
if you're willing to put in the effort. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely love the platform and the community that they've built, and yeah. So
Honestly, that's it's always a big part of it. Like it was one of the main reasons that I got into Unity was like I just found it very easy to like go online and it's like I have a question. There's probably someone else who's had a similar question, and okay, there's my answer. Cool. Here's like 5 videos showing you how to do a thing.
yeah.
A lot of
The
them
nice
are
thing about
bad
Love2D is that
practices.
yeah. Nice thing about Love2D is you don't even need to watch the videos, because their wiki page is like, oh, it's so good, so good. Except shaders, but no one documents shaders, so
Oh, documentation for the most complex coding. I don't know. I find shaders incomprehensible. Um,
yeah. I found one tutorial on shaders with Love2D, and that's been my go-to. Like, have you noticed there's a distortion effect
yes.
that happens every time on the beat? Yeah, that's something I wrote. Are you proud of me, father?
Oh man,
Uh,
there was a bunch of stuff that I could get into with Game Maker that had nothing to do with shaders, but like you could draw stuff basically to a mesh that I was constructing myself, and then I could freely manipulate the points of that mesh. And I have no equivalent for that in Unity. That is the one thing I really wish I could recapture because you could do
yeah,
some really fun stuff with like I'm just going to map pieces of this texture to this triangle and then I can move the pieces of the triangle around and like animate something that is just a static image with code.
yeah. Oh, that's always fun.
Because that's also what you're doing with the character sprite. Like you're just sort of moving a 2D image back and forth, transforming it, manipulating it.
Yeah, and you can get surprisingly far with that. Like honestly, my thing that I really like in terms of like graphics stuff, which, you know, granted, not much of a graphics person, but I really like taking a 2D pixel art character and pretending that it's a high resolution texture and just like warping it in interesting ways and
Yeah,
rotating and
absolutely.
scaling and stuff like that, and not being confined to the literal pixels on the screen.
People shout at you when you rotate pixel art, but they are a little more accommodating with squash and stretch. Like my game, my character does that. I have a standing and crouching animation that is just 2 frames, but then I use squash and stretch on the character, and it makes it look more animated than it actually is. So if I get my little character here, first of all, you can see there's squash and stretch on the jump and the landing, but then the like crouch versus stand. That's also just like simple
Yeah.
sprite manipulation and looks nice and squishy, but it's just 2 frames.
Yeah. Well, it looks pretty nice.
Uh, Thank you. But yeah, so I think everything I've had in terms of feedback, I kind of mentioned as we go throughout the video. Definitely, like the main menu UI. I guess the best thing you could do is kind of constrain the resolution not to be like relative to the size of the screen, but to be like an absolute resolution. That way, you always know the buttons will fit on the screen. But anyway, I know the UI is just like a basically a temporary thing.
Hey, listen, if your biggest complaint is the UI, I feel complete. I feel like I've done my job as a developer.
Absolutely. It's just like the little things that round out the experience, but it's by no means detracting from the core gameplay.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would love to see if you have future versions. I'm always happy to be a playtester if you want to resubmit the game anytime you want some feedback on it. If you have another like an iteration or a build that you've put together, you want to test something out, we can have another
Yeah.
conversation like this one.
Yeah, and I'd be more than happy. I will say, you know, I think I stumbled across like one of your message in the Brackies jam. And I was like, huh, this guy does developer interviews. I want to take a look. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of a fan of like the chilled, laid back atmosphere that you have in your videos. So
Thank you. I do. I wish we had more concurrent viewers for sure. Like the whole reason I was trying to adhere to a more strict schedule is because I figure it makes it easier for people to like. Oh, I know that there's developer interviews in such and such a time, but at least the VODs do get a decent amount of like people clicking through. So we'll make a highlight of this, and people are going to be able to watch it, and you can refer back to it for whatever playtesting observation or conversation bits you want to grab. And yes, SK Vitter, you've been our sole participant in this video, so thank you so much for being active and asking questions and such.
yeah, yeah, I'll
Um,
give you a little round of applause.
all
Thank you
right.
very much.
But yeah, Scott, thank you so much for joining me here today. This has been a really fun conversation, and I look forward to seeing future versions of the game.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, if you ever feel like doing some chess study, I am not very good, but I'm at least decent.
Oh man, if I have time to play, maybe on a future community game night on Fridays, we'll try to do like a chess tournament or something. I don't know.
Oh, that would be fun.
I
Dang,
would,
sign
like I
me up for
said,
that.
I'd absolutely get the floor. Like you'd wipe the floor with me. Yeah, I don't know. I would. I need some practice for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Look forward to future conversation. And for now, have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks. You as well.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.